Theresa May, welcome to Liverpool. Just tell me your reasons for, why you wanted to come to Liverpool today in particular.
I wanted to come to Liverpool because one of the key issues that I dealt with, that if you like, ignited the spark inside me that saw this issue of abuse of power and was able to draw this thread through various things that I dealt with as Home Secretary and PM, was Hillsborough.
But did you, during your time as Home Secretary, as Prime Minister, did you come to Merseyside and meet the families here?
I did meet the families, actually down in London rather than up in Merseyside. But yes, but it was that sense that here were people who for so long had been struggling to get the authorities to listen to them. When you look back, actually, that shouldn't have been the case. And it was only, obviously, when the independent panel was set up in early 2010, under a Labour government, of course, a few months earlier, and then I had to decide whether to continue with it, that we were able to get a group working who then actually revealed to the world what had happened.
Sure. There were arguably more pivotal moments, though, I suppose, in the journey to the truth. Is there a risk that by writing about this subject in your book that you could be accused of seeking credit for what happened with Hillsborough?
No, the credit actually goes to Margaret Aspinall and all those who campaigned over those years to get to the truth.
You've spoken about that moment where you had to decide whether the Hillsborough Independent Panel would continue its work or not. I'm presuming not everybody was as keen for this to continue as you were.
No, there was a reaction that this happened a long time ago. Why try, going over it again? There was, I'm told, but this is sort of third, fourth hand, there was one Secretary of State who hid in a cupboard rather than meet the families.
Who was that?
No, I don't reveal it in the book, and I don't afraid intend to reveal it to you today. I didn't actually confront anybody about it, but their departments will not have wanted to rake over the past, possibly a defensive mechanism again. Maybe we made mistakes in not properly addressing the results of some of the previous reports that had come out. So that whole push would have been, just stonewall, don't do this.
Let's talk about Margaret Aspinall. What was it about her that struck you?
What I saw was just that intense dedication and commitment and absolute belief that it was not the fault of the fans.
Hi, lovely to see
you.
Oh. We owe her a debt of gratitude. I know Teresa's not the only one that we owe the debt of gratitude. There's Andy Byrne, Maria Eagle, Steve Rotherham, Derek Twigg. I've met a few Prime Ministers and a few Home Secretaries. I felt for the first time she's the one who listened.
It's all down to you actually being out there saying, no, we're going to get at the truth however long it takes. And I'm only sorry it took so long.
Without Theresa, we'd have never, ever have got the correct verdict. This is not about party politics. It doesn't come into it when you're fighting for truth and justice.
And here was a woman who, as others had suffered huge personal tragedy through the loss of her son, and yet was taking up that campaign on behalf of the families of all those who lost their lives.
Do you see that there has been any change? Have things got better or worse?
I fear, sadly, that we haven't seen things getting better. Institutions, be it the police, government departments and others, often when something goes wrong, when a mistake's been made, they actually sort of close up and defend themselves rather than searching for the truth. And I'm afraid, I think, we still see that tendency, that sort of natural instinct to defend, rather than saying, well, what has actually happened here? Let's find the truth.
Tell me about your book, The Abuse of Power. Why did you decide to write a book on this topic and not a tell-all about your time in Number 10?
Well, the idea came to me after I'd stepped down from being Prime Minister, and I started to look back on my years both as Home Secretary and PM, and I realised there were a number of incidents, issues that I dealt with over that period of time, and there was a sort of thread underpinning them, which was what I've come to write about as the abuse of power. And it was a number of occasions where those who were in positions of authority, in positions of power, effectively used that power to silence or to stop the truth coming out, and were effectively acting against the interests of those they should have been protecting or promoting. It was really that balance between the powerful and the powerless that led me to see this line, this link of abuse of power through so many different things that I dealt with.
I want to mention the Manchester Arena, and it was a time when I think there'd been quite a lot of terrorist activity, hadn't there? And you were sort of having to deal with that. But this seemed to be over and above. I mean, the nature of who was targeted.
Well, I think there had been these other attacks. Of course, we'd had the Westminster attack. But the difference with this in Manchester was the targeting of children and young people.
So John Saunders held his inquiry into the arena bombing. The police were criticised, weren't they, as part of the report for their sort of poor response. I've got a statement I'm going to show you here, which is from last November. And I'm only showing you because I think it's an example of what you're talking about in the book. There are two versions here. And this is the press response from last November. And you can see the original there, which I'll let you read. And then shortly afterwards, we received a second statement with a sentence removed. It's a knowing nod from you.
Well, I mean, you're right. It's an example of that defensiveness, again, that we see. And
this is last year.
Yes. No. Well, you asked me earlier if things had improved, and I said, sadly, I didn't think in many ways it hadn't improved, and that's why that's why I hope that my book and what I've written about in the book will lead to people starting to think about this rather more, and will lead to leaders of institutions, of police forces, of government departments, etc., actually thinking rather more about when they do need to question, to challenge, to be curious, and when they need to accept mistakes.
This is a police force under new leadership, sent in for other reasons to sort this force out. It's disappointing, isn't it?
Yes, it is disappointing. I'll be honest, it is very disappointing.
There were a couple of chapters in the book which seem to stand out, I think, compared to some of the others. It could be argued you're being very defensive yourself when talking about Brexit.
What I've tried to do is to set out what I believed was necessary and why I felt we got to a position where, if you like, the hardliners on both the Brexit and the Remain side were, in their different ways, preventing us from achieving what I believe was right.
Do you have any regrets from your time as Home Secretary and as Prime Minister? And secondly, does the book answer anything, or does it just tell us what we already know?
Well, first of all, I think, as I identify in the book, I mean, I am sorry for what happened to the Windrush generation. And I also regret the fact that on Brexit, I failed to get my deal through the House of Commons. I thought it was a better deal than the one that went through the House of Commons by definition. In terms of answers, I've set out in the book some of the things that I think we need to look at in terms of this institutional sense of defensiveness. What we need is generations of leaders who recognise that public service means service of the public.
Theresa May, thank you very much.
Thank you.